Hi everyone, my name is Graham and I'm from JOMO Studio, and in today's video we're going to learn how to repot a succulent, specifically a Haworthia. So before we begin potting, let's go over some of the stuff that comes in a JOMO Studio repotting kit and some other things that are just handy to have. So number one, you'll always have your pot. You'll have your soil. This is a mix that we do here at JOMO Studio. It is a succulent and cacti mix. You have your Japanese akadama rock. This is going to be our rock topper. You of course have the plant. We typically use Haworthias. There's lots of variety within the Haworthia family, so here's one, here's another. Haworthias are super stable plants, hence why we like to use them. And then within your garden toolkit, you'll have a large scoop. You'll have your small scoop with a pointer end. You'll have your smaller shovel, and then you'll have your V-shaped prong. And some other things that aren't included in the kit, but some things that are great to have and just makes your life easier, would be something like a repotting mat that I have here. This is something that you can get in addition to on jomostudio.com. But if you don't have this and you want to get started right away, you can also use basic napkins, newspaper, or pizza box works great. And other things to have on hand just to make your life easier is some pruning shears or just some clean scissors, your common household scissors. And this is what we need to get started for the repotting session today. So moving forward, we're just going to slide some things out of the way and we're going to prepare the succulent. So for this, I'm going to use this one. But if you received one that has lots of babies, you can totally plant it and repot it as a whole unit, or you can separate some of these babies just by cleaning off all of the dirt, which we're going to do here, and snipping the root, leaving as much root as possible on the baby plant. But for today's workshop, we're going to use this one here. So one of the first things that you'll do when you start to repot is we're going to break down the plant first. So we're gonna remove some of this nursery soil to replace it with our blend here. The easiest way to get started, sometimes the soil comes very dry, which is great for a desert-like plant like this. But sometimes the soil is very hard and crusty. So if you were to massage the nursery pot just by squeezing on the sides, that gives you a head start just by loosening some of that soil up. And then what you'll do is you'll just hold on to the plant and just glide the plant out. Now, in a lot of house plants, when you go to do the repotting, it's advisable just to take a little bit of soil off the top, some soil along the sides, and some soil on the bottom, just to expose those roots. So when you put it into your pot and you backfill with all of the new soil, those roots are already in the new soil. When it comes to succulents, and particularly the Haworthia, feel free to remove a little bit more of the soil so you can inspect the root ball as well. And this gives you an opportunity to see if there's any root rot, if there's any pests within the soil. But this looks really great to me. Now that we have the plant stripped down, we can clean it up. In this state, before we pot it up, it's much easier to clean it up in this state now. So a few things that you're looking for are any older dead leaves, such as this one right here, you can see. Just go ahead and pull that off. These ones look okay. Most of the older leaves are going to be at the bottom of the plant because the new growth comes from the center. So if there's going to be a leaf that you're going to be removing, it's probably going to be closer to the bottom of the plant. But for now, all of this looks really good. Now we have these woody-like dry stems. This is leftovers or remnants from the flower. The flower can be quite tall. What you'll do is you can just get some scissors or a pruning shear and just go in and find the base of that dried off stem and you can snip it off. So I'll go in here and go to the bottom as far as I can, snip it off, and reach down here and get that off as well. Now a lot of Haworthias will have a dried tip. This is quite natural. You can leave it just as is. If you're wanting, you can also get your scissors or your pruning shears and you can just kind of clean it off a bit as well. You can snip it directly off, but know that that new snip point will also be drying brown. So I like to leave just a little bit of the browning and cut it on an angle so it forms a slight tip, so it looks more natural. Okay, so our succulent is almost ready. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to grab one of our garden tools. I'm going to use the V-shaped prong because it has a finer tip on it. Let's grab this and let's go ahead and clean up some of that old soil that has fallen within the leaves. Again, it's much easier to clean off the plant when we haven't potted it up yet, because you can turn it on its side and get into all of those crevices as well. Now, we're not going to be overly particular on this stage because we still have to pot it back up and dirt may fall back in here, but this just gives us just a really good opportunity to get in there while our lives are easy. Okay, all right, so here we have it. It looks pretty good. So now it comes time to the repotting stage. So you can totally use some of this older soil as long as it looks good, aka there's no pests within it. I'm going to put this plant over to the side and I'm going to bring in our cute little pot. Now, when you have your succulent, I would advise giving it a little bit of a booster seat, and in this stage you can also decide on the height that you would like it. So this pot, I'm not sure if you can see it or not, has an internal rim. So I've decided that I'm going to have my soil level up to that rim, so my plant is somewhat sunk into the pot. If you're wanting, based on your pot, you can also have the soil level come right up flush to the top of the pot, which means your plant is going to sit somewhere just like that. So because it's going to be sitting here, there's quite a bit of space there, so I need to give it a soil booster seat just to build it up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and feel free to join in as we do this step. So off comes the lid. Now here's the soil mix that we use at JOMO. It's 50% soil, 50% grit. So what does that mean? So half of it's going to be a soil component. That component is going to be the material that absorbs the water, that allows the roots to soak up all of that moisture and to fill up the leaves. And the other half is going to be grit. The grit allows the roots to breathe. Roots need oxygen around them to be healthy. So you would set yourself up for failure if you just use pure topsoil, because that soil is going to be very tight around the root and it's not going to allow any air in and out, and very quickly you'll have a waterlogged plant, and which will cause root rot, which is the quickest way to kill a plant off. So here for our grit, which makes up 50% of this mix, we have pumice, perlite, vermiculite, and lava rock. You don't have to have all of those components, but if you just have, let's say, 50% pumice or perlite, that will be a really good opportunity for the soil to breathe and be light and bouncy. So let's go ahead and put some of this soil in here, building up that booster seat, and then I can go ahead and backfill around it later on. Okay, so here I have it. I'm going to use my pointer end, create a little crater for all of my roots to go into, guide my plant in there, and tuck in some of those roots if they're sticking up, and I'll get that in. All right, now I'm going to backfill some of this other soil in. So backfill means just putting it up around the plant, covering any exposed roots. Here I go. And as you're doing this, try to avoid packing the soil. Instead, just tap the pot on the table, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And that will allow the soil to settle in and around the roots without packing all the soil in. Again, the idea of the soil medium that we use is to create a light, bouncy, airy mix so the roots can breathe. And in the event of an overwater, it'll allow the soil to evaporate some of that extra water so it's not suffocating those roots, causing root rot. All right, so I'm nearly done. And if you need to use some extra soil, feel free to go back to the nursery pot soil. That's okay. All right, so let's arrange this soil a little bit so it's even all the way around. Okay, so instead of packing, let's tap it. So I'm just gonna tap it onto the table, and that's gonna settle all of the soil in. Now you'll notice I'm holding the Haworthia at the same time. If not, it's gonna be like I'm riding a bull and it's just kind of buck the plant out. So I'm gonna hold the plant where I would like it, and then settle all the soil around it. So that's gonna move all the soil in and give a nice light hug around the plant. So here I have it. I have the plant, I have all the soil. I'm just below where I want my top line to be. But this is where the Japanese akadama rock comes in. So let's go ahead and open up this lid. You can join me. And if you're still cleaning the plant or putting in the soil, feel free to pause the video until you're ready to resume. So here we go. So now I have my Japanese akadama rock. Now why we use this, it looks pretty and cute, which is great. But the primary reason is when this rock gets dark, it turns a really, really dark brown color. Now I have some water here to demonstrate. And this is a clay-based rock, so what happens is when it absorbs the water, it takes about 2 weeks to dry out, and coincidentally, you're gonna be watering your Haworthia about every 2 weeks. So I'm gonna get this wet. See how dark it gets in compared to the dry section? So this is exactly what's gonna happen when you water it. So this is going to help you have a really good indication of time passing as well as the moisture level within the soil. You want it to go from dark to light. So let's go ahead and fill some of this akadama up and put it around the plant. And I'm going to go all the way around, covering all of that soil. Because the soil is very light, bouncy, and airy, the akadama will also weigh down that soil slightly, so when you water it, the soil doesn't just float up to the top of the pot and get all over the plant. So you don't have to use all of it. We've given you a very generous amount, just in case you want to use some for later in a different succulent. Okay, so again, avoid packing. We're just going to tap this akadama and put it into place. If you want to move some of the akadama around for a particular spot, go ahead and use your pointer or the end of your other utensil here. To me, this looks pretty good. Okay. A couple light taps, settle all of it in. Okay, so here we have it. I've now successfully potted up my Haworthia. Pretty easy, right? So let's go over the care instructions because this video would be incomplete without learning how to take care of your new plant baby. So let's go over watering. So watering is about every 2 weeks. The telltale signs that it needs watering are 2 factors. One, all of the akadama that you watered 2 or so weeks ago is completely dry. So it's all this light brown khaki color. The other good indicator of if your plant needs a good water or not is the difference between a grape and a raisin. So when the plant is full of water, it'll be tight and plump and firm like that brand new grape that you pick in the grocery store, just like this one is. So this one does not need water currently. But if it starts to use up some of that water within the leaf is starting to soften and it's going to start to wrinkle and it's going to look more and more like a raisin. The lower leaves are always going to be affected first. So when you're checking your plant on the 2-week marker, does this Haworthia need water? Okay, the stones look dry, but let me test the plant as well. A light squeeze on some of these lower leaves, and if it feels soft and squishy, like a grape that's kind of lost its luster, perfect. Now it's time for some water. How much water and how to water? When you water your plant, let's pretend this is our watering can, try not to water onto the center of it. Most times the water does not evaporate quick enough because where we have the succulent is not hot enough. So the water is going to stay within the leaf structure and rot up against the stem, causing leaf rot. If you have a succulent and all of your leaves are just casually falling off, but they still look healthy, that's probably why. So what you want to do is you want to water around the outer perimeter of the plant, and that'll allow the plant to stay dry, but it'll also encourage the roots to go where the water is, and that will strengthen your overall root ball. and therefore having a much stronger plant. How much water? If your pot, like this one, does not have a hole in the bottom of it, you're going to use the rule of 1/3. So 1/3 the volume of soil is going to be the volume of water. So I'll say that again. Whatever volume of soil you have, and in this case, we only fill the soil up to this line, we're going to use 1/3 of that volume as the volume of water that we add in. And again, we're going to be adding it in on the outer perimeter of the plant instead of right onto the plant. Now, where should you put this Haworthia? In your home or at your work? So we pick a Haworthia because it's so diverse and it's so easygoing. There are some succulents that love pure sun. This one is not one of those. So you can put it in a bright space, a medium lit space to a low lit space, and it'll be just fine. If you put it in direct sun, just be mindful and just keep an eye on it. If it starts to go really dark, almost a black color, it's getting a little bit too much sun, so in that case, you're just going to move it back from the window. Or if it's outside on your balcony or your back deck, just put it in behind something so it kind of blocks all of that direct, harsh sun rays. When it comes to moisture, this is a desert plant, so we're not going to put it in a high humid environment. We're going to keep it just your average home humidity is going to be perfect. And fertilizing, you can totally fertilize this plant throughout the growing season, which is going to be late spring, summer, and you're going to stop it during late fall and winter when the plant starts to rest up a bit. And whatever fertilizer you use, you're actually going to be watering it down some because you don't want to have root rot or root burn, which will cause all of the leaves to look burnt as well. So this video wouldn't be complete without a summary. So let's do it now. When you start with your pot, you're just going to massage the soil. You're going to slide the plant out and you're going to remove some of that soil. For the general house plant, you're going to take some off the bottom, the sides, and the top, but you're going to leave the majority of the soil intact. For Haworthias and succulents in general, you can go ahead and be a little bit more aggressive and remove most of that soil so you can expose all your roots, inspect it. You're going to clean up the plant. And once the plant is looking spectacular, you can then bring in your pot, bring in the soil, check the height, make sure to give a bit of a soil booster seat, place it in. You're going to be backfilling the soil all around. When you do, try to avoid packing the soil. If it's a bit top heavy, it's okay. The akadama is going to really anchor that in. So I backfill the soil, tapping instead of packing. Looks great. I like the height of it. If it's too short, feel free just to bring the plant up, backfill again, tap, 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 and that's going to settle in the soil again. Put your akadama in around, and then review to see if you need to clean it up anywhere. And if it needs watering, it'll look like a squishy grape, something that's soft and squishy and a bit of a wrinkle, much like a raisin. It can pretty much go in any light, but if it gets too much direct harsh sun, it might start to turn black. If that's the case, just move it back a bit. And that's it. That's as easy as it can get. We love Haworthias. They're super simple and very, very hardy plants. If you have a question at all, feel free to hit us up on our Instagram, which is simply @JOMO Studio. You can also send us an email inquiry if you would like to ask any more detailed questions, and that is at hi@jomostudio.com. So hi@jomostudio.com. And that's it for this video. You've now learned how to repot your succulent. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.